episode of Critical Comics. This is Corey, master of all four elements of the Avatar realm, and I'm here with
Jonathan Crane, the master of fear.
And Fred Freeze, a.k.a. Doom.
And guys, we are, as of this recording right now, we pretty much are, like maybe a week, 2 weeks from the opening, after the opening of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. We really just needed about a week or two to sort of calm our thoughts and get everything together to talk about this because, honestly, I kind of wish we did have a camera at that point when we came out of the theater because the nerd rage was kind of overflowing. So we're going to review the movie today. This is your spoiler warning if you are one of the lucky people to not have seen this film, or at least not have wasted your money on it. There will be a lot of nerd raging out. But generally, we're just here to talk about the movie itself and why we thought it was bad, which, surprisingly enough, much of it doesn't have a whole lot to do with it being just a comic book film that wasn't all that true to the source material. A lot of it has to do with it, honest to God, just being a bad movie. Let's just start with a couple of things. I'm just going to start out, just go ahead and get right into it with the opening scene. The opening scene, which started off with Bruce Wayne's origin. They decided to do an origin story with it, like they always do. I will give this some pros and cons, though, because I thought the opening scene for it was actually beautifully shot. The imagery was very well done. I thought it was very well directed. That's probably, what Zack Snyder is best at. The whole thing with the gun wrapped around, with the pearls wrapped around the gun. I thought that was an excellent scene. So that was still a pretty decent scene. Then they go into the funeral scene of Bruce's parents, and it just kind of goes downhill from there. What were your guys' thoughts just on that one opener there?
Yeah, as far as that's concerned, I thought that it was beautifully shot, but I felt like I had seen it before. The scene, to me, just didn't really seem as creative because that's kind of just a Zack Snyder wanted scene. In fact, it even had the comedian in it. So I kind of... Yeah, and plus I was like, okay, they started it that way. Not really as original because it's like you expect to see that. You expect to see that first opening scene, but it was beautifully shot, but it was just something that I expected to happen all the way through.
That's similar to how I feel about it. I didn't have that as much a problem with it, but certain parts of it, the way he kind of went for a more dreamy, a more metaphorical, he put a lot of little metaphors in there, like with him, the child floating, and so on and so forth. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, but you'll see what we're saying, and that let us know what was to come later on in the film, and I'm gonna let Corey continue to discuss that, but I agree with both of them on that. I'm personally tired of origin stories of characters that have been beaten into us to death. We know these character stories. Let's get down to business somewhat. We didn't need to retell how Batman became Batman.
I will say at least it was short. At the very least it was short. It didn't take up, too much of the 2.5 hour movie. I will say this, though. There is a scene towards the end when, of course, you go to the part where he falls into the cave. He falls into the cave that's filled with bats, where you finally discover why his motivation for becoming Batman altogether. And when the bats surround him, kind of like they do with Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne in Batman Begins, they start to form this circle around him and everything, and you think the scene is going to end there until they form a circle around the young Bruce Wayne, and he starts floating. He starts floating. Yes, I said that. He starts floating upwards into the light, and that's where they move on into the next sequence, and that's kind of where we all said, my God, this is what we're in for, isn't it? It's just going to go downhill from here.
Yeah, not necessarily a great start. I didn't like the feel of it. I feel like that's something that they did the storyboard for that, and then they said, okay, yeah, man, that's going to be so symbolic of what he's going to become, and it's going to be such a big deal, but it really just turned into some weird, dreamy sequence thing that I was just like, all right, that just doesn't really work for me. But I don't know, maybe there are some people who loved it. I thought it was just kind of pretentious. It was just
kind of pretentious. Oh, and don't worry if you don't get why Bruce Wayne became Batman and that whole obsession he has with bats this time. Don't worry, they'll keep referencing it throughout the entirety of the movie. We'll talk about those scenes in a minute. Fred, your thoughts on that one?
Again, like I said, we're right there together. Like I said, the metaphors and everything like that, them pulling in imagery to try to paint a picture of something we already know, I really don't see what that really set us up for in this movie. I don't think it was a great use of time in a movie, which is going to get into what I'm going to talk about with pacing and how things were laid out later as you go on in here. I just don't think this was a great use of time for this type of a movie and what we're really trying to set up. We're setting up for characters that are already here and that most of the audience goes in and knows something about, or that will find something about after the film, and that's what's happened with most good comic book movies lately. Like I would say, most people don't know a whole lot about Ant-Man, do they? Well, they just pretty much, they gave us an origin story, but they showed you there was a history before this character. They didn't give us the origin of all of the origin. They just kind of gave us, okay,
right, this is a
legacy character. So it's the same thing here. It's like we know enough about Batman, we know enough about Superman, and like I said, Jonathan said it best. If you're going to actually go forth and put this type of a character out there, you don't really have to do all of this glorious type stuff. I think that at the end of the day, some people may like it. Some people like this almost attempts at high literary stuff, but I just didn't, see where it was going.
I'd say altogether. By the way, folks, they had $150 million advertising budget. That was just the budget for advertising. If you really have to try that hard to get people to recognize that Batman and Superman being in their first film together is a major thing, that probably explains in great detail how you must really feel about what you created, which is probably not all that much. Okay, now moving on from that opening scene, then we go to the destruction of Metropolis, which I give them credit. I give them all the credit in the world for. I'm glad they finally actually acknowledged that, yes, thousands of people died in that scuffle. Because all of the Man of Steel freaks and fanatics were going to say, oh, no, the city was evacuated when all that happened. Yeah, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. They acknowledged a whole bunch of people died. I like the fact that it was creative in the sense that it showed the destructive scene from Bruce Wayne's perspective, that you see him rushing through all of this and witnessing all this crap happen. And seeing, his motivations as to why it occurred. And at the same time, this also is one of those things of, okay, you clearly see this alien creature and his alien buddies are destroying the city. Obviously, his tower fell over. It was a great start. If the film had gone on from there, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I was wrong. Because that was after the whole kid floating through bat scene. I'm like, all right, maybe this is going to be a pretty decent film. Because I have to say, that was a pretty good scene from my perspective. What did you guys think as far as that one goes?
I felt like he should have done more things that would show me that he's Batman. I felt like he just, I looked at that and I said, okay, that's Bruce Wayne. He's kind of powerless. The city is falling apart. But I would have liked to have seen him put on some bat mask for a split second. Doesn't have to have a bat symbol in it. But just some sort of like futuristic mask, and he's like trading it between people. Or that he's using his Bruce Wayne tech to kind of help people out a little bit. And everybody knows him as Bruce Wayne. They know that he has access to this technology. So they're like, okay, this guy's helping us out. Thank you, Mr. Wayne. And by the way, why in the hell did he let his worker stay in the building? Why did his worker need his permission to leave? Like, I've gotten them all out, sir. It's like, okay, now leave. Get out of the building. Like, that was kind of weird.
You would have thought the city falling apart and this giant fucking alien spaceship that appeared in the middle of it all, after they had a transmission come through, say, you are not alone, and Zod issuing a threat, would probably have been signal enough for them to start getting the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah.
You would think?
Well,
but apparently not.
You would, when you work at a place, They want you to help as many people as you can until the first responders get there. If the first responders don't get there, then it's kind of up to you to help people out. That happened during the September 11th crisis or situation. But what made him stay? That was my issue. Like, I said, okay, you did your job, sir. You helped all of the people out of the building. And I think they forced this moment between Bruce Wayne and this guy, that he has to listen to his number one in command Wayne Tech guy die. So I don't know. I felt like that just didn't really connect with me.
Apparently. Fred?
That's similar to how I feel about it because, number one, we spoke about 9/11. Both of these characters are human, right? Okay, our first responders pretty much got sick, they died, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm able to suspend belief in certain movies. There's two problems I have with this scene. Number one, not that he didn't put on a bat. He should have had on his. I feel like he should have went in there almost as Batman from jump. We could have saved that cut scene we just talked. Not the cut scene, but the opening scene that we talked about for another time, and or maybe just had that as a cut scene somewhere floating around, and just actually let him come in as Batman, suited up with a special suit or something on, saving people and doing certain things and trying to maybe protect something at Wayne Tech that would have blown up or something like that. And he's pulling people out and he's doing all this other stuff. And
I can kind of agree with that. You also remember though that they said about way back when they were advertising this thing, oh, he's like 20 years retired from being Batman or something like that.
it's okay, and now that's even getting weirder. And you're telling me with all of his intelligence, he just goes into, I mean, yes, the heroism, I get it, but you're just gonna run in there panicked and say, okay, I'm gonna breathe in all this stuff, and then on top of that, your worker, who's the building fell down, is also breathing in all this stuff. Now, and then I'm gonna touch on the whole thing with everybody freaking out. Superhero battles cause damage.
Yes.
The question I always ask people, the premise that they try to set this up on is people are mad because Superman causes damage. My question is, how much damage would Zod have done if Superman was not there?
And that's fair. That's fair.
And so my thing is, yes, people are going to be. I don't think they really approached the way humanity would react when this type of thing happens. And they do this in many superhero movies. When yes, it's going to cause cataclysmic damage. But if you remember, what's the movie with the giant robots?
That does not narrow it down.
I'm sorry.
Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rim. Thank you.
Yeah.
You notice that those humans eventually started developing escape pods and
after the second giant monster attack, we need to guard against this somehow.
Exactly.
Have an escape plan.
Exactly. Now, I would have liked to see them come together on a Cadmus level, a Wayne Tech level, or something like that, and start developing something like that. You could have tied that into the film, but instead they just jump in there. And yes, the visceral emotion is, oh my God, these things are monsters. They could kill us at any time. What are we going to do? I get that. But what they're doing there is just ridiculous. They just kind of did a bunch of leap. They went from two emotions and just said, okay, go with it. And, it wasn't a good use of scenery to me.
Well, you do have to remember they also only had 18 months. He had only been Superman for 18 months or whatever. Or that was really his first appearance. But I guess, I don't know. I guess they do live in a world of superheroes. Maybe not on the level of a Superman. But yeah, it does kind of seem like that.
We'll get to that scene in a minute.
Well, can I say one more thing about it? I understand that it's 18 months, but it's just like, it's almost like there's no, how do you put it? There's no breaking point. Like, humans wouldn't try to figure any of this out. Why aren't you trying to call Superman to the UN and really discuss this stuff more?
That's actually going to be my next thing.
So I'm sorry, I mean? Why aren't we doing this stuff like, say, hey, man, if he's supposed to be the good guy, instead of this silly little court thing that you got going on, why isn't he being called before the leaders of the free world?
This was
and so on and so forth.
This was a world-shattering event.
Yeah, why didn't he actually appear before the UN himself? Why would he even need to be called?
In fact, it seems like the only people that he actually had any freaking contact with was the military from Man of Steel. After it was necessary to coordinate efforts to find out, where the world destroyers, the planet builders were going to be. And then he just kind of like, all right, I'm just going to go fly and, save random people and stuff. I'm not going to address the fact that I'm an alien from a different world that's here, who's just randomly saving people. I won't talk to any reporters. I won't give any interviews. I'm just going to fly around and do stuff. And y'all can just, guess. Yeah.
And that's one of my things. Like, and then when it's time to call him out, we'll talk about that in the next area that you're going to discuss. But when it's time to call him out, who calls him out? People from Metropolis. Where's the rest of the world?
Months.
That's what I mean.
What happened?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Yes, this happened in Metropolis, but guys, the whole world just found out that aliens exist, and one of them has been living here for like the last 30 years.
The whole world did get the Zod message about, them, like, there's no need to fight or whatever it was. I can't really recall because I've probably only seen Man of Steel like twice. I don't care to see it again. But that is pretty unique. I feel like he would have gotten more people. Superman would have gotten more people on his side if he appeared before the UN. Then people would they would say, wait a minute, don't try to destroy him. Don't try to kill Superman. We love Superman. Even people within the military, different branches of the military would maybe, try to work with him.
You would think so. If he bothered to do anything like explaining who or what he is, where he comes from, trying to be a diplomat, which it seems like he failed extremely hard at trying to do that. Like, there's no explanation. There's no him having any kind of repertoire with humans. He's just like, I'm just going to save people and just stop random stuff from happening. Oh, I'm done. Bye.
And see, that's kind of what they write into the character, and that's what really makes me angry, because I'm like, at the end of the day, I think humans' response, yes, it would be fear. Yes, it would be, some people would be maybe on the positive side. But the problem is, I think that humans would, A, try to track this creature down. B, they would want to know what's going on with the tech. The governments of the world are going to try to get their hands on that tech. The governments of the world are going to try to get their hands on. There's so much stuff on.
I need to segue. I need to actually segue
Yes.
on that one, because that actually brings me to another point.
Yeah.
The broken Kryptonian ships, the ships that were destroyed in the fight in Metropolis and Man of Steel, had not been moved. I don't see. Nothing in this film makes sense. Just from a logical standpoint, that absolutely makes no sense. So this world-ending ship, this alien technology that is super advanced, that crashed in Metropolis after this giant battle, and we're just gonna leave it there. We're gonna leave it there and just build some stuff around it. We're not gonna try to move it to a secured facility. We're not gonna try to dissect pieces of it and take it back to some government agency to have it analyzed. We're just gonna leave it in Metropolis. We're gonna leave it in Metropolis and just have it there for apparently any old millionaire to get into. Well, I didn't want to jump into Lex Luthor without Jonathan. I have to, because while we're naming pros and cons of this film, it's very rare that me and Brandon like to say that we don't toot our own horn all the time when we don't want something to happen and we're afraid it's going to. But Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, we called so long ago as being the worst casting choice you could think of. And it's amazing that he exceeded our expectations in the sense of being more horrible.
Of being terrible.
Than we thought he possibly could. There was nothing of Lex Luthor that we saw in this character. The suave, always in control businessman, the guy who will look in the eyes of gods and say, I'm Lex goddamn Luthor and you will bow down to me. I didn't see that there. When I saw, how did you describe him, Brandon? As a millionaire with Tourette syndrome?
Yeah, pretty much. He's an off-brand Heath Ledger.
Oh.
He's pretty much an off-brand Heath Ledger, because come on. We know that's why the character, that's why they picked him. They hit a home run and they said, let's go in another direction. A direction that people don't expect again. We did that one time with the Christopher Nolan films, and now let's do that again with Jesse Eisenberg, because some millionaire executive sat in his office and said to himself, okay, you know what, the new Lex Luthor, he wouldn't be like this billionaire bald guy that, no, he would be like Jesse Eisenberg from the Social Network movie. That's what it would be. And that's what he played. He played Jesse Eisenberg in the Social Network movie with Tourette's and with a love of Jolly Ranchers.
He's just making random noises and just doing random shit all the time.
That's not even really good Tourette's.
It's not even good Tourette's.
He's not even really doing that very well.
I think he was described at one point by someone else by saying that, you know what, man, you hate Lex Luthor, but you hate him for all the wrong reasons. Because you're supposed to hate the villain, yes. You're supposed to hate the villain to the point where it's like, oh man, I can't wait to see this guy get what's coming to him in the end. No, this Lex Luthor really strikes you as a person who you might know in real life and want to punch in the face immediately. Every single time.
Maybe that's what he was going for, but I had no respect for and his acting was bad as well. His acting was terrible.
Every single time he was on screen, he ruined every scene. He ruined every scene that he was in. Because it was just annoying the moment he started talking. It was so goddamn annoying.
I was dealing with it for the first 25, 30 minutes. I was just dealing with it. But then beyond the point, after the Jolly Rancher thing, after he just randomly gets security clearance to go to an alien spacecraft and just, I don't know, fondle a corpse. And that's when I'm kind of like, wow, you guys don't have, there's no way that this guy can get this sort of security clearance past everyone, even if he was talking to a general of generals. There's no amount of money that would allow that. There's no how can you be
There's
given
no connections.
That's level 9 access. He is literally in a I don't know, a DNA chamber.
The only person I can imagine having that kind of access would be Amanda frickin' Waller. And anybody that she had under her command saying, I authorize these people and these people alone. If they exhibit any kind of behavior that doesn't seem normal, execute them immediately. You know, that's the kind of clearance that they have. Is like, if this person sneezes when they're not supposed to sneeze, shoot them in the head. Because what we're dealing with is a machine from another world that nearly ended ours. So he gets access to that absurdly quick. And a lot of this is going into the character aspect of it, but he is one of the major annoyances for me in this movie. Fred, your thoughts on it?
There's nothing else to be said about that. You guys pretty much hit a home run on calling this a while back. You guys pretty much broke it down exactly the way it is, and I'll put it back in the context of the movie, as we've been discussing. I think it's ridiculous the level of foreshadowing they put into stuff like when Batman meets Superman as Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent. I mean, yeah, that was part of the trailer stuff that was popping around, but that was ridiculous because you got somebody with a heightened sense like Superman, like he's not going to figure out what's going on here. And then on top of that, you know, they're making little comments to each other like,
I love bringing people together. Oh, yeah, you don't want to pick a fight with this guy. I swear to God, the only thing was missing was a look and a wink at the camera.
Exactly.
That was the only thing was missing. One of the characters like looking at the camera and giving them a wink.
And then I will actually say, this is what really drives it home for me. You have Batman and all of his technological, you know, advancements, and he's moving around and he's doing all this other crazy stuff. And, you know, he's sitting here, he decides to pick a fight with what's going on in Metropolis with a reporter. It would be a different story if this was the mayor of the city and the city, and he was championing Superman all the time.
Yeah.
If it was somebody else, but you take a beat reporter, even a top beat reporter. I don't give a. I mean, what?
He doesn't even during the opening scene, he's like, "Oh, the Daily Planet, I own that one, don't I?" He's like so absent-minded about it because he's Bruce Wayne. He talks to reporters all the time. This is like going under his radar.
And he's supposed to act like and yes, Clark was picking him about stuff going on in Gotham, but the problem is he would never let on to that. He would if the Batman that I've been used to, and I hate to use the word real Batman. But the Batman that I've been used to, he would have played that off so beautifully, saying some kind of either absent-minded thing or pretend like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about or whatever.
Christian Bale did that when he was questioned about it in the Dark Knight film.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, well, a guy who dresses up as a Batman and beats up criminals clearly needs help, you know?
Exactly.
He threw them off. He's like, he's a millionaire. Of course I'm not going to be Batman. That guy's insane.
Yeah, and that's what but he's defending it. You know, he's there like, oh, you're the one to talk. I'm like, oh, my goodness, here we go now. You know, so I was like, that's ridiculous. And lastly, you guys are so right on the security clearances. Those more plot holes, more denying us proper suspension of belief. And I'm going to let you go ahead and go on with this, but that's one of the biggest problems with this movie. Like suspension of belief, you give them so much to start with. Then a good story writer builds his universe around the things that we're suspending our beliefs on. We're suspending our beliefs on a man flying, on this improbable character. We're suspending our beliefs on a lot, but the rest of it is classical story craft written through certain tropes. And a lot of things are forced, and only the people who wanted to see what they wanted to see are walking away saying they love this movie. And that's what I'm saying. The people who wanted to see something, they're seeing it. And you can't really explain to them why you have an issue with it.
I feel kind of...
You can't. I tried. I tried so many times to just figure out the mind of that person.
And I think I know what it was. I honestly feel compassion for a lot of these people because the truth of it is, I think it comes right down to it, is that they've waited years for this. They've waited years to see something that they really wanted to see. And it's kind of a sense of they don't want to be... They want so badly to not be disappointed. They're willing to cover their eyes and shield their ears and shield themselves from what they know they're witnessing, which is crap, and say, no, it was still good. It was still good. Okay, prime example. Just because I like to give this away, a guilty pleasure of mine is the movie Warriors of Virtue. I don't know if folks here would ever have heard of that movie, but it was made a long time ago.
It's the fighting kangaroo movie.
It was like 1992, 1995 when this film came out. It was basically a movie involving the kangaroo versions of Power Rangers. Mm-hmm. That's basically what it was. And it's a guilty pleasure of mine. It's a bad film.
You're not alone. It's
a bad film. I know it's a bad film.
I liked it too. So
it's a bad movie. It's very badly shot. The fight scenes are pretty good if it weren't for the stupid ass camera work. It's a guilty pleasure of mine, but I know it's a bad movie. And while I, will talk to someone who will tell me it's a bad movie, it's like, you know what? I liked it, but I understand why you didn't like it. It's like they don't have the ability to do this, the DC fans. They want to say so bad that this film was great, that this film was cool. Maybe all they wanted to see was a bunch of explosions and Batman and Superman knocking each other around for 5 minutes in a 2.5-hour movie. By the way, that scene doesn't last that long.
I'm going to say that the Warriors of Virtue didn't have the type of plot holes that this one has. Okay? The Warrior, that's just... I think it's pretty straight line what that's about. There's an enemy. There's a good team. They're trying to fight the enemy. There's not, they don't have a million. Oh my gosh, so many different foreshadowing.
They don't have time traveling visions going on.
Pretty much.
Yes, a Gestapo Superman.
And if you're gonna have a time, we'll get into all of that. But yeah, no. I would rather watch the Warriors of Virtue, 100%.
Yeah, it was, and that's what we've seen from some of the fan bases is just absolutely insane. Because again, as of this recording, we're about 2 weeks from when the movie premiered, 2-3 weeks after we saw Batman v Superman, and we're about 2 weeks away from Civil War coming out. Civil War, which has only been pre-screened by people who've been lucky enough to see it so far, has already gotten a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It's already gotten a 100% rating. People are already loving it, and already. I'm getting myself prepared just mentally for the amount of bullshit that some of these false DC fans will try to throw to say, oh man, Rotten Tomatoes doesn't matter. Civil War is whatever. It's a Marvel movie. All you Marvel movies are just fun and happy and campy.
People really, to understand the psyche of people, they really want to be on one side or the other, and we're just nerds who love comic books. That's what we do. We love comic books. We love Marvel. We love DC. We hope the best for DC.
No one in this room wanted that film to be bad.
Exactly.
No one.
Exactly. We wanted to love this, and there's a scenario that we talked about many years ago that I wanted to bring up later. But yeah, to me, that's just a flawed way to look at it. Okay? Just deciding I'm going to love all of the Marvel movies and trash all of the DC films. Well, right now, you don't have to force it. But that doesn't necessarily... I don't understand the mindset of a person who really just only wants to like one side.
Fred?
That's exactly it. I mean, like I said, this is the worst part of fandom, when you got people that just won't cop to certain realities. And this is like something that I love. Like, I've collected both. So I'm coming from the real comic book place, and I'm open to Elseworlds, and I'm open to interpretation. So I don't want to hear all this, oh, you just want to... No. As long as you tell me a good story, I will accept certain things. This was not a well put together story. The movie did not flow in a good way, and as far as the pacing was all over the place. The dream sequences were popping up like I was on some kind of psychedelic drug.
I don't know, man. Were they dream sequences or were they visions of the future?
And that's what I mean. And then you had characters that are so far out of character, which we'll talk about later, that you're not even portraying the character even anymore. You're not doing an homage to the character. You're not taking the character in any kind of direction. You're kind of just saying almost a destructive bent on the characters. And that's, again, if the story was written, I would have even given them that. If the story was well put together, I would have given them everything. They could have said, you can make Superman. I'll be like, okay, I won't care for that Superman. I won't care for that version, but write the damn story. That's the only thing I'm asking. Like, and all these people online, it's like comedians with jokes. A comedian always says, if I have to explain the joke, it wasn't funny.
It wasn't a good
joke.
If
you find yourself online...
The Joker said that, by the way.
Exactly. If you find yourself online trying to explain to people why this is a good movie, guess what?
It's not.
Exactly. And if you're defending it every day, there's some kind of a character flaw there. It's not a bunch of people who are just hordes of Marvel fans saying, let's say this DC movie sucks.
Okay, going back to what we were saying before, the fan base can be pretty damn rabid, and that is one of the downsides of having a comic book history fan base. But getting back to the movie itself, going into some bigger parts of this, just a lot of flaws in the writing, just a lot of flaws in character. Getting back to some of the flaws in the writing itself, is it me or does it seem like Superman just wants to say, man, fuck you and your buildings? Because he has a problem with leaving walls standing. And not necessarily in a good way. I don't know where they decided when they decided to make Superman just this guy that destroys shit whenever he tries to save people, but It seemed like there was a scene in the desert where, by the way, apparently that was Jimmy Olsen who got his brains blown out. They just fucking killed Jimmy Olsen. In the very beginning, in the opening scene with Lois. Lois is in trouble. She's captured by like radicals or rebels or something in the desert in Afghanistan or somewhere. I don't know.
You don't need Jimmy Olsen. You don't really need Jimmy Olsen in this movie, I guess. I guess they're just saying, oh, to hell with him.
I guess so.
We got Perry White, Well, we don't need Jimmy.
Well, technically we got Perry Black, but yeah.
Yeah. Perry Carmel.
I guess.
Perry Brown.
Here's my thing with that whole thing. This goes into the Elseworlds, whatever the heck. Maybe this universe is a little too dark. I for it to even have a Jimmy Olsen, which I don't really understand. And the whole thing with the buildings being destroyed right and left, I'm like, again, that just goes back into the horrible, like, way you kind of put things together. Like, everything is being demolished every 5 minutes, and you got situations where you got a human character in a suit, nonetheless, going to the fight scene, being thrown through walls. Then, speaking of Superman coming to save Lois in the desert,
I have to say, the only innocent bystander that he seems to give a shit about in any of these films is just saving Lois Lane.
I know he put a drug dealer through a wall, or a terrorist, a supposed terrorist, through a wall, and
to explain it, guys, the guy that had a gun on Lois that had her held hostage, Superman comes in through the roof. He's got Lois held hostage. Now I'm thinking he's gonna do something smooth, like use his heat vision to melt the gun, or move so fast that the bullet stops him and he just like lets her go. No, he basically just bum rushes the shit out of the guy, grabs him, and apparently puts him through the wall, through a solid concrete brick wall, and that's the end of the scene.
Yeah. I think, and let's not forget that Lex Luthor used LexCorp ammunition during this scene. Now, how stupid is that? That you're trying to frame Superman. You're trying to make the world believe that Superman is meddling in things that don't really concern him. So you're saying, you figured out that Lois Lane and they're dating. So you kind of put him in this tough situation. He kills all of the criminals. Which,
by the way, I have to pause you here and just say for a second how very little thought was given to saying, oh well, Superman's obviously responsible for this because the guy who has heat beams decided to shoot everyone. That's what the public decided to believe. That's what they had the public believe in this movie. But please continue. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a boatload of crazy, man. It's a boatload of crazy that he would allow LexCorp technology to be used in that way, and it only comes from LexCorp. He doesn't use normal guns. There's a lot of stuff like that in that movie. It's just a lot of plot holes that just don't make any sense. He killed that guy.
Yeah,
he freaking murdered that guy. He's dead.
That guy is dead.
He's extremely dead.
If you watch that scene...
He didn't have to kill him, by the way.
No. You see that guy go through a wall. You see that guy, Superman, go through a wall. That guy is gone. And then you never see that guy again. I'm going to reckon that he's just gone. He's splattered across
he's in
whatever
hell.
bricks.
That's where he is. He's in hell.
He's in the afterlife now. That's where he is.
He's being judged by beings far greater than Superman.
At least for comedic purposes, they could have at least had him said he's like in a body cast, in a really bad body cast. And he's suing. I am suing Superman for millions of dollars.
Yes. That would have been funny.
He put me through a wall.
You see that same terrorist who's wearing like an awful body cast that's like really horribly put together in like a shitty wheelchair. He's trying to hobble and get around. Like that actually would have been funny. It's twisted, but it would have been funny.
Now, one thing I'll say is also, it just bugs me that he can hear. I mean, man, if you say anything to Lois, he's the ultimate angry boyfriend that doesn't want you talking to his girlfriend.
Oh,
they made Superman the ultimate dude that just like, if you sit up there and you try to spit a line to Lois, if you try to just say, hey, you looking good today, Lois.
Suddenly something drops down on you, man.
Whoa, what was that, man? Oh.
Hey, is that a car? Did a car just drop down?
You got some sort of problem? Hey, who are you talking to? You talking to my girl? It's my girl.
What, are you going somewhere now? Oh, there's a toll now, friend. Where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going? There's a toll.
Listen,
I can move faster
you
than you, bro.
don't talk to her. That's my woman, all right?
Bro, do you even lift? But, and it's that kind of stuff that doesn't make any sense to me. I could understand if you written it to the point where something bad was going on, weapons transfer, Lois and them just happen to be out there covering it, as they generally are, because you just put them in the middle of everything. And Superman comes out there and they just kind of cross paths, or the fact that Clark and Lois are out there covering this
Even
with
better.
Jimmy, and then okay, now I understand.
It's like, okay, Clark Kent and Lois Lane are reporters. They're out there reporting on dangerous
Yes.
stuff. Oh, a
War zone
firefight
type
breaks
stuff.
out. And,
Yes.
oh, wow, Clark is suddenly nowhere to be found. Where'd you go? Oh, hi, Superman. That's like the easiest thing in the world to
It's
be done.
been done a million times. And I'm like, all of a sudden, no, he's just got to be on the other side of the world, and he just knows somebody is grabbing Lois Lane or is dropping Lois Lane down a chute. Or, like, I mean, even in the middle of the battle toward the end, you saw the way he was in the middle of a battle and he heard Lois Lane, of all things, drowning while Monster is pretty much ravaging everybody around him.
And we'll definitely get
So
to that.
that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'll say, as far as that whole scene goes, that was just a really it was meant to set up the fact that Lex Luthor knows Lois Lane is his weakness. That was meant to set that whole thing up. And let's see, while we're on the subject of a guy hobbling around in a shitty ass wheelchair, the whole plot point that they had of somehow or another, with him never talking to anybody, never speaking to anybody, they just saw fit to erect a giant goddamn statue of Superman in the middle of the city. I don't even know how that happened.
That is a unique situation. Apparently, they hate him so much that they made a statue of him.
And it's giant, folks. It's a giant statue. I'm not talking like, it may not be Statue of Liberty big, but it's pretty fucking big. And it took some time to build.
Yeah, it's such a bleak movie. Just really to think about it.
Supposed to be, I'm sorry, I just have to say on that note, the statue that's supposed to be indicative of, oh, this great being coming down to save us, it's just a pitch black, like, stone, lifeless looking thing. Kind of like the rest of the movie.
Kind of like the character himself in this movie.
So in other words, perhaps it was the most accurate statue ever.
Exactly. So yeah, but the fact that a guy who is a paraplegic actually he climbs the statue, all right, and he writes false god. He writes false god. Just
he
to
spray
think
paints false god on it. Yeah.
how bleak that actually is. It's just really not saying that it can't be in the movie, but it's just like you can only have so many movie moments. There's so many moments that are just so tragic.
Folks, you are going to need to take some antidepressants before and after you watch this picture.
Human trafficking.
Human trafficking, human
guys who are
enslavement.
paralyzed, climbing statues, then getting blown apart, then Superman's mother being put in. Actually, she's going to be burned alive by a flamethrower.
And just to go back a step for that setup, the paraplegic who climbed the statue, there was a point to that. A guy who was in the Battle of Metropolis and Man of Steel, who was caught in the middle of that fight, had a piece of debris fall on him and he lost both his legs. That actually ended up being one of the people that Bruce Wayne in the very beginning in that scene we talked about helped pick up some rubble and get it off of him. And Bruce has been trying to send him money like every other week or something to try to help take care of him. But it seems like the guy didn't want it. He still blames Superman for his plight, And that seems normal. That actually seems like a normal plot point to have. That some people would still view this godlike being and say, this only came down on us because you were here. And that's one of the things that they really, really miss out on in this entire story. Is that, guys, they try to pack so much into this film. They try to pack so much comics fan service into this. That they miss out on what actually could have been a meaningful story. That by itself actually is enough to have gotten at least a good 2-hour movie out of it, is these people dealing with the ramifications of, 1, there being life on other planets, 2, that life coming here and being aggressive, 3, one of those beings staying here who is so powerful and there's nothing we can conceivably do to control him or stop him, and then him having his own. I mean, I thought they were going to touch on that in the trailers when they had people reaching for him, when they showed him up in the sky like an ethereal being. I thought that was going to be a major plot point of people trying to treat Superman like a god and him rejecting that and saying, no, I'm just an orphan from another world. I've just got these abilities. I'm not an ethereal being. I can't bring people back from the dead. And that would have been enough for me. That would have been enough, that whole moral conundrum. But they completely fly by that. They completely fly by that in favor of action because, hey, we got to get to the fight.
And this is the point that we were making in the earlier part, like when Superman is not talking to the UN, when Superman is not making contact with anybody after obviously he's there to try to calm down the crowds of people on either side of the situation where they think either he's a god or he's a villain or they're afraid of him. At some point, a lot of this, the beginning of this movie, I feel like it should have been people kind of unpacking what had happened. And you got like a conniver like Luthor working behind the scene, trying to get his hand on the tech, trying to get his hands on certain stuff like that. You got Wayne Corp that's there. They're helping the government, and they're with Cadmus because that's how Batman stays interconnected. I'm like, that's what I wanted to see. The jockeying of those characters all kind of jockeying with each other over who's going to end up with this, how Superman's trying to work on the whole PR thing, working with the world, trying to rebuild stuff. Rather than that silly statue, I would rather see him like talking to people about how to kind of reconstruct stuff or trying to work with people.
Fred, you're trying to be logical. We don't have time for that. We got to show
I'm
more
not even
characters.
saying. And here's the thing. I don't even want to take a whole lot of time in the movie. You don't even got to take a lot of time with that. Certain things can be floated on, like you see Superman out here being. I don't need to see the whole hokey him back and forth as Clark Kent as much anymore. You know what I'm saying? At some point we could, since we're doing almost an Elseworld take on things. How about let's just do away with the whole. He's no longer a reporter after that first movie.
Apparently so.
I would just say let's just do away with that, and you can either say Ken is passed or Ken is kind of was lost in the issue. They could have made up anything, and they kind of worry about what's happened to Clark Kent. But other than that,
how Clark Kent got a freaking giant obituary in the Daily Planet is kind of beyond me, because they want to keep saying, oh, I know how it was, because they keep wanting to say that part of the city was evacuated when all that shit went down. But we'll get to that.
Yes, more of the same.
We will get to that. But yeah, it's ridiculous how bad they screwed up on things that could have been major plot points, but they decided to do it for more fan service. Speaking of shoehorning in more characters, I will say, as far as, because of course, here's the big point that we do need to talk about is Ben Affleck as Batman. Everyone said this was their biggest fear. Everyone reacted very poorly, Fred, yourself included, about Ben Affleck playing Batman. And as it turns out, he was probably one of the saving graces, the few saving graces of that movie, like we thought he might be.
Hey, like I said, I'm a person who will admit when he was wrong. And after the whole situation with Daredevil, I was squeamish, to say the least, about Ben Affleck being Batman. And he actually pulled it off. He did a decent version of a Batman. So I'm okay with what he done there. I just think the writing handicapped what could have been a much even greater character, because the writing just handicapped him.
And Brian,
no, I agree. I agree 100%. Like everyone else, I wanted to watch the people who picked him die slowly. But he proved us wrong. The movie was bad, but he did a solid job as Batman. The decision making was poor, but his performance was pretty solid.
Once again, the thing I loved most about this movie, that I absolutely adored, that I thought they had the character spot on, was Alfred.
Yes.
Which is sad to say. Jeremy Irons knocked it out of the freaking park.
Yes.
As Alfred Pennyworth. With the snarkiness, with the loving comments that were shoehorned in, with him being a smartass constantly to Bruce Wayne, and him being the mentor and the father figure throughout. I was never taken out of character when Jeremy Irons was interacting with Ben Affleck. He was Alfred and Bruce. They were having a discussion, they were talking, they were arguing, and it was great. It was great to see. As far as Ben Affleck goes, I thought he did a decent job as Batman. He delivered a solid performance. I'm not going to say he was a Christian Bale, because a lot of people are trying to say, oh, well, your rendition was even better than Bale's. That's not true. That's not true.
No.
He did not do a bad job, though. As far as the Batman character is concerned, though, there were a lot of poor decisions made.
Yes.
As far as the Batman character, because like I've said many times with Man of Steel and Superman, how I was always pissed that they never showed off Clark's intellect. They never showed off Clark's ability to be a scientist himself. They never showed off the fact that he actually is the son of a scientist and is one of the most brilliant minds ever. That in his spare time, in his Fortress of Solitude, the dude's working on curing incurable diseases, on trying to fix world hunger, on actually, saving the world in the long term. And they never focused on any of that. With Batman, where the fuck is the detective that we all heard about? Where is that guy? I mean, immediately, now, after that whole scene in Metropolis where he witnesses the destruction and everything, I can see why he's got a gripe to pick with Superman. But it's been what, 18 months after that scenario? 18 months after that happened? And a solid 18 months of him watching this guy fly around and save people. And it's even in the trailer when he says, every time your hero saves a cat out of a tree, you always write a puff piece. So it's pretty clear in his mind that whoever this guy is, he's not here to destroy us. He's not here to conquer us, or at least not at first. It looks like he's trying to do the right thing.
But as his character said, if there's even a 1% chance that we have to take that as an absolute certainty or whatever he said,
yeah,
You know that because that makes sense. Because if he's 99% good, then and maybe 1% bad,
Then we gotta kill him.
we have to freaking kill him because of all of his power. And that just I don't know if I I don't see the logic in that at all. Because this character he's devoid of that. He's devoid of all logic, making any sort of sense. Like you talked about being a detective, doing any simple detective work.
And a giant goddamn hypocrite. I have to ask you guys a question. What do you estimate Batman's body count was in this movie? Because he clearly kills people. He clearly kills a lot of criminals in this movie.
We call the Batmobile the Murder Mobile.
Because those were machine guns. Those
Yes.
were 50 cals
That was the murder.
machine.
That was the murder machine, sir. That was the murder mobile, like from Death Race or something.
It was truly like, guys, there's a chase scene with the Batmobile where he's apparently trying to chase down these guys who may have kryptonite in their truck. And, oh man, there were so many people that got fucking murdered in that scene.
Let me give you another point. Why would you put a tracer on a truck only to blow the truck to pieces? Isn't a tracer for stealth? Isn't a tracer the whole idea?
Isn't stealth what Batman is kind of known for?
Yeah.
Why, if you put the tracer on the truck, why are you following them immediately? Why don't you just go to where they're going to be? You know where they're going to be.
And it would have made some form of sense if it was like, okay, he popped the tracer on it so he could follow him and, get to the place and like Batman, like a trained ninja he is, goes in and steals everything without anybody even knowing he was gone. But man, even the scene even in the aftermath when you see that the kryptonite's been stolen, there's bullet casings all over the place. The place is shredded.
Yep.
It's like it's torn apart. Where the fuck is the stealth Batman that we all know about? The guy who lurks in the shadows and can be in and out before you even know anybody was there. Where's that guy at?
It all started with the sadistic level of him having him brand characters, and people say, "Oh, if you're branded with the Batman symbol, you're murdered in prison."
Which doesn't make sense
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that would be like a badge of honor. In jail,
Exactly,
man.
like you're a villain. You must be a bad villain because Batman branded you. So
Like, that
I'm
doesn't
like,
make
what,
any sense.
what kind of prison thing do we got going on here?
If they kill a guy, yeah, exactly. You're gonna either way. If you're like a pedophile or a rapist, you're probably going to be murdered anyway. But yeah, I guess you can say they would kind of be working with Batman in that way. And since they were all put in prison by Batman, it wouldn't even matter.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it would probably be a little division of prison inmates. Like they would wear that as a badge of honor. Like, yeah, man, the Bat got me too. We got to form some kind of group to get this freaking guy.
Yeah.
Any criminals who are left anyway. I don't know. It seems like Batman isn't shy about murdering people.
And see, and that's the big parallel that's going on here. You've gotten to the point now where Batman seems to be like he's more of a reactionary. He's a reactionary, and it reflects society in a lot of ways, where people sit around and watch these certain shows and stuff, and then they get reactionary. I'm not going to go too deep on that, but it's just one of those points. And I think that a lot of people wanted to see the more savage Batman from Arkham Asylum. They want to see the video game played out live, where he's having to go. They want to see the more of the brutality going on, where Batman is taking people down. Then they want to actually see the Batman that's thinking before he takes people down. Because here's the thing. This is why I said this about Wayne Tech. I'm like, Bruce Wayne would have used Wayne Tech to work with the government to get his hands on this material, on the stuff about the alien, all of this stuff. Lex Luthor does all the research and all of the thinking in this movie. Lex Luthor turns around and says, look, I know all this stuff about other metas existing. The minute Superman started appearing, I started to research to see were there others, people with special powers or anything like that. And he had a file on him. So he's been studying them.
It's the Batman that we know of. It's been 18 months since the Battle of Metropolis. The Batman that we know of, he should have had all this information
That's
already.
what I'm saying, intel. Like, where's Batman that actually knows what's going on or is trying to gather information? The kryptonite should have been with Wayne Tech, and we should have saw maybe those criminals that were working for Lex stealing that,
trying to steal that,
and then Batman's kind of tracking them down, like you're stealing from Wayne Tech, so here I come to get you, and then maybe Superman and Batman meets up then, and the tracer's on the car, and Superman stops him when he's kind of sneaking behind him and following the car. Not, I'm killing everybody, and then Superman shows up.
50 cows.
Oh, and by the way, I realize this guy's indestructible, but I'm going to try to run him over with my car, too.
I honestly, and that's exactly what I was about to go back to. Yeah. I honestly think that was an accident. He just saw him, and he's like, he couldn't stop in time.
Yeah.
And ended up running headfirst into Superman.
I think that he just smashed into him.
Oh, and by the way, I have to say, how long was that, guys? How long do you estimate that chase scene was? Like about 2 to 5 minutes? It was a long scene. It was a long scene where there was a lot of chasing going on, a lot of car crashing, a lot of explosions. And then Superman shows up at the end.
And he really,
where the fuck were you, man?
and he really only seems focused on
He was focused on trying to
Batman.
intimidate Batman
more than actually figuring out, hey, by the way, what's going on? Something.
I mean, you did.
He
your
flew
super
off.
hearing was
He
was
actually
there, right?
flew off.
Your super hearing was working like a few minutes ago when all of these explosions and gunshots and everything started going off, right? When you see those giant fires back there, right? No? You're just going to fly away? You just want to deliver a message? Okay.
Yeah. Well, it only works when Lois is involved.
He only bystander he gives a shit about
is Lois. Because, I mean, obviously all these other people, but, I'm sure there's got to be groans of men dying in their burning car riddled with bullets. Exactly. And so, nobody cares about that. They're bad guys, right?
As that scene is going on, you can just hear the screams of people in the distance.
Yeah, like
the next time they're starting to light in the sky, go to it.
God help me. Yeah, exactly.
Consider this mercy. I'm burning alive.
Exactly.
It's like just
While he's burning
alive.
Let me tell you something about people burning alive. They just scream. They don't have sentences. They don't have the time to say anything. The pain is too good.
It's too good?
Yeah, it's just too good.
It's just too good.
Yes.
And apparently all Superman was there for was just to deliver a message to Batman and then just fly away. Not check on anybody that just got like ran over or ran or shot or had an explosion happen and they might have gotten in the way. Not check on any of those people, man. Just like he just wanted to deliver a message and leave. Another try and fly.
Because and also I guess they're gonna keep on. People that hate Superman, they'll say, well, there was an abandoned part of Metropolis. This is an incredibly large abandoned part of Gotham.
This was a very populated part of Gotham, but it was like, it was a warehouse, but man.
They said this is the abandoned warehouse district. So they're basically saying that the good thing this whole area is abandoned.
I hate that
and I'm like, man, wait a minute. There is no such thing. Any of us who live in cities know there's no such thing as a truly abandoned part of a city.
There's no
as soon as you got an area that's abandoned, at least another level of criminal and poor people end up moving in there, or they push the poor over there. So basically, a bunch of people that they don't care anything about will live over there, and you would end up killing them or killing their children. And that's why people die in drive-bys and all this other stuff.
But no, man. They said it was evacuated. They said it was abandoned.
Yeah, nobody would be there.
They're gonna try to use that throwaway line to death in every fucking movie. Watch. I guarantee you they're going to do that every time there's a giant battle. Oh no, it was evacuated.
That sounds like a video game
excuse
situation. Yeah, that's a video game excuse. But yeah, maybe in Birmingham, it probably would be abandoned then. Man, there are parts of the city that are actually abandoned.
I don't know. There's actually homeless people there. So
there
are still homeless people, and you would be surprised there's a random person walking by. Sadly enough, I mean, you got points, but and with the hipsters moving in, not so much. But anyway, and the hipsters will be there too. I thought about that.
Yeah,
there's gonna be somebody
there too. There's gonna be somebody that's like, man, I like this place because there's no white folks here.
Yeah, but
Something
you're
like
white,
that.
sir. Like I said,
It's hipster mentality.
It's hipster,
nobody gets it.
Exactly.
But back to the subject at hand. As far after that scene, after the failed attempt to steal the kryptonite, which apparently he decided no stealth, no secrecy, let's go in and just shoot people. And he runs into Superman, who doesn't do anything to save those people who might still be alive. What happens next is that same paraplegic guy who lost his legs during the Battle of Metropolis, who spray painted false god on it, is apparently being taken to court or some kind of committee because he demands that Superman pay for his crime or Superman pay for the destruction that happened there. Because somebody needs to be held responsible, despite the fact that there was a pretty goddamn clear message from the alien invaders that, hey, we're here for this guy and we're just gonna fuck your world up. What happens at that point is that there's some convoluted plot where Lex Luthor shows up to the guy's home, gives him like this fancy new wheelchair that's actually filled with explosives. Saw that coming a mile away. And there's a point where Superman finally, because of this committee, because apparently the only, and this that's one of those things that really irks me, is that the only thing that got him to show up and actually address people and actually talk to people and tell him about himself was the fact that his image was being tarnished.
Yes.
Essentially, some dude who was in the middle of a fight that got started and you had to finish is screaming that you're responsible for it and you need to say something, and that's the only reason he decided to come by and talk. And that was it.
So Superman shows up to the People's Court.
That's pretty much it.
And that's and that's how low level it was. He showed up to a local court.
Not the United Nations, guys. This is not a United Nations meeting.
Yes, it's like I expected Judge Judy, Judge Wapner, somebody like that to be up there like, so Superman, I hear you tearing down buildings, Joe Brown. I mean, that's the level that he showed
That's
up.
how it was, man.
I mean, it's like
This is like a committee of Metropolis. This is not like some global world meeting court where you would think a bunch of diplomats and shit would show up.
And then this guy is just, I want to talk to him. I want to face him down. I'm like, how many citizens want to face down some smarmy politician in the real world? I mean, come on, man. This is like, dude, this is ridiculous. This is totally ridiculous.
Yeah, I can kind of understand why the guy he was so frustrated about his situation. He just wanted to look Superman in the eyes. Technically, Superman was the only person who was connected to his tragedy. So sometimes you just want to look at the person, even if it's not logical. You just want to look at the person who in some way is connected to what happened. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all. You said that it was actually kind of it wasn't surprising. I thought that for me, it was actually surprising that Lex Luthor would blow up a guy in a freaking wheelchair. That to me, that I don't think that the character of Lex Luthor would do that. I think that the character in the movie, the Lex Luthor that they had in the film, he would definitely do that.
I wouldn't put that past Lex. If it served its purpose, I wouldn't put that past Lex. And the purpose of it was to tarnish Superman's reputation even more.
I think that he would use his mind more than just blowing up some dude.
The thing that surprised me was that what's her name? His bodyguard. Mercy was in the courtroom when that happened. Mercy's dead. Which is I understand that, but it's like I was right there with the likes of Angry Joe when he said, man, when I saw Mercy in the courtroom, I'm thinking, okay, nothing's gonna happen here. It's Mercy because Mercy, if you don't know, is Lex Luthor's personal bodyguard, and in the comic book, she's actually like before she has like some sort of accident or whatever, she's like a high level martial arts fighter. There's a point where she has to protect him and pretty much beats down all of the assassins that come near him. Later on, when something happens where she gets modified, she becomes like part freaking cyborg. So now she's got guns coming out of her arm. Mercy is a major kind of a major character as far as Lex Luthor's personal bodyguard. But in this film, we see her being an assistant maybe once or twice, and then she gets blown up.
Well, see, I think what's going to happen is, I think now that he's got his hand on that tech, she may not be totally dead. And what they might do is, they might, she might get those modifications. She might get that cyborg modification.
I don't know what the hell they're going to do.
I mean, I would expect some hokey crap like that, but now that we know that it's going to be there, we know that. And my big issue with all of that is still the fact that just because this guy's mad doesn't mean he get to talk to Superman. Where are we at right now? Then on top of that, these so-called framings of Superman is so mundane that it's not something like, oh, this guy's blowing down buildings, he's throwing cars through buildings, he's making people bow to him in the street. It's none of that stuff. The stuff that you're trying to hang on this guy, again, it needs to be handled in a larger body, that they need to say, hey, let's discuss what's been going on. We're calling you out, Superman. The world is calling you out. We want to whatever. Or even better, if they say it wanted, Superman. They're looking for him like the alien super. So you got
like he's
human
being held responsible.
Exactly.
Like,
so
we need to talk to
that's
you.
what I'm saying. If I saw the world army, like the world working together, like World War II, World War III, and treating him like a real threat, and they're like, if we find him, we got to try to take him down, or we got to try to bring him in. Please come in, Superman. We don't want him to go whatever.
That would have made more sense.
Exactly. Because if you're gonna, it's like other than that, a silly like let's start with just meeting in Metropolis. I'm like,
that's so crazy. That's insane.
And so we're gonna start with meeting in Metropolis. You put up a statue of the man in short time, short order.
This had to be city funded again, not a small statue.
Exactly. Batman is like not looking into anything. He doesn't know any. If anybody knew any stuff about any of this crap, I would expect Bruce Wayne to know what was in that daggum spaceship. I expect the bat computers to have
on it, full
exactly.
Roster, wherever
I would expect Wayne Tech to have their hands on it, and somehow you see Amanda Waller and Cadmus trying to and if you and I'm not going to get into the comic side of things, but I'm just saying like that's one of those type of things that you expect, and they just threw it out the window. It doesn't matter.
Moving into the third act of the movie. Well, okay. Before we go a little bit further, we did forget about kind of another pivotal character that everyone was excited about, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, who I have to say, for the time that she was on screen, was probably the best acting superhero of the three. This, honest to God, was not a Batman v Superman movie. This more or less, I was way more interested in her. I was way more interested in her than anybody else. Despite the fact that while I wish Gal Gadot would have, I don't know, bulked up a little bit so I could see more Amazon and less model, less supermodel, because they just got a really pretty actress to wear the armor. I'll put it to you this way: if you ever seen Xena Warrior Princess, same thing but with a lasso. Which is not necessarily a knock on her, but at the same time, I will say that she did a fantastic job from what little time they did have her on screen. And by the way, is it me or did she and Bruce Wayne have like way more freaking chemistry together than Lois and Clark?
Yeah, I'm not really. That's probably the worst Lois that I've seen. Really, no, excuse me. I'm sorry. Kate Bosworth was the worst Lois. This chick is just not really Lois, but she does give an effort, unlike Kate. But I don't know. I think Gail kind of was put into this movie. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? I'm thinking that she was supposed to be in the last scene with whatever that thing, that Frankenstein monster was.
Yeah.
She was supposed to be in that scene, and then they added all of the other stuff. They added the stuff on the plane. They added all of these other scenes because it's like, oh man, people really need to see more Wonder Woman. People are begging for more Wonder Woman. So I don't know. I think that she was just kind of added in.
They don't know the meaning of subtlety very much in this movie, do they?
Subtlety, what's that? No.
Something that Zack Snyder hates.
Yeah. He definitely hates that, and it shows. It shows in this catastrophe. But yeah, I enjoyed her. I thought that she did a good job. I thought that
the entrance was really cool when she came in the Wonder Woman gear. That was really good.
Mm-hmm. I think that was the biggest reaction of the movie, at least the movie that we were in. Apparently, some people were cheering throughout. I don't understand that, but people really enjoyed seeing her throughout. They got the biggest reaction, at least from me.
At least in the theater we watched. Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Fred?
Yes, Wonder Woman. That was by far my favorite character in this whole movie. And I agree with you. I would like for her to be a little bit more bulky, stout, because she's an Amazonian warrior. I like the way they kind of shown her through the years. My big issue is the fact that Bruce wasn't calculating this information beforehand. Lex Luthor was looking out for other metas. Bruce wasn't doing
again.
this.
That detective spot wasn't there.
It just wasn't there. I'm like, and
there's no way Lex Luthor would have all this info.
That's what I'm saying. And it's like, so basically, all of this occurs. Her interest into her parts of the fight were actually much better than everyone. She was actually raging and fighting. Yeah. One of the big things that got me is the fact that Batman, after all of this crap preparing with Superman, when he got into the big fight, he was like,
he was damn near useless.
Exactly. It's like, bro, I got to get down on the ground. This is beyond me. I'm like, man, come on. Like,
God, that was
so
awful.
yeah. Basically, she was in there raging. You got to see her do stuff. Her powers, like even her slapping her gauntlets together, making that sonic boom, and
that was good.
And just she was just going in it. She was not afraid of nothing, and that's what I loved about it. They actually made her like, hey, this
like
is
her character.
Exactly, a true warrior here. This is not somebody just sitting around saying I'm going to spin around or something and being like back in the day, which was it worked for its time, but now. She's like, oh no, I can get in here with the boys, and I'm,
And that was great. I'd say she was probably scrapping more than the boys were.
Oh
like,
yeah,
she was definitely in the middle of that fight. She was running in head first. That was great to watch. Yeah. Wonder Woman be Wonder Woman.
She was actually the muscle in the fight. Sam.
She really was.
Yeah,
she really was.
I think she was more tactical than Batman was when he fought Superman.
Oh yeah.
Which was great because the whole movie is called they've been building up ever since this film was announced about the big fight, the big showdown between Batman versus Superman. I'm going to start with that just because I want to break down that stupid shit. For the simple fact of the matter is that the reason that they fight is because Lex Luthor has figured out who Superman is. He's figured out that he's Clark Kent. And he's figured out that Clark Kent's mom lives in bumfuck nowhere, Kansas, and has her kidnapped. And he shows him Polaroids. Which, by the way, is an odd throwback to a piece of technology that hasn't been used for like the last 20 fucking years.
Yep.
He shows him Polaroids of his mom being kidnapped, and it looked like some sadistic ass photos of her being tied up and shit like that. And he says, "You have 30 minutes to go kill the Bat, to go kill Batman. Otherwise, I'm gonna have my guys, murder your mom." Now, I just want to pause on that little thing alone. Before that scene started, Lois met with Lex on the top of a roof. He pushed her off that roof to lure Superman there, and it worked. He got to Lois, he saved her, he went back up, they had their talk. And then he gives Superman 30 minutes to go kill Batman. Hey guys, I just want to ask a couple quick questions here. Now I realize you guys aren't the hugest Superman fans ever, but how fast do you estimate it would take Superman? How long do you think it would take him to fly from here to the other side of the world?
That's a tough one.
Well, just in general, like that's just that question.
If he's moving at his top speed, I think like seconds. My opinion.
Seconds. And he has this thing called X-ray vision, does he not?
Yes,
Where he can
does.
see through everything except lead. And they've just demonstrated that he apparently also has super hearing because he could have been anywhere, but he managed to find Lois when she was falling off of a building. And Lex gave him 30 minutes to kill Batman. Are you going to tell me that he couldn't have gotten some altitude, used his X-ray vision and that super hearing of his, gone in and saved his mom by himself? That's a giant plot hole I saw right then and there. Like, what, 30 minutes? He did this in seconds. What are you doing?
They just needed Batman to look cool. I felt like that was Batman's best scene, and that's what they needed. They needed Batman to look really awesome, to go in and tactically do what he does. One of the only times when he looked like
that's the only
the
time
Dark
in the
Knight.
movie where he actually uses his fucking brain.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like that's the only time, really.
So, that was the only time that they really even gave him to be Batman. So they were like, okay, well, massive plot hole, but yeah, whatever.
Fred? Did that ever occur to you, man, while you were watching that?
It occurred to me, quite quickly. My problem with that whole thing is, so you're telling me that you've given up your mother for the girl that you're smashing now because, quite frankly, if I pinch Lois, I pinched her. Somebody has their hands on your mother, and you don't have any kind of an inkling that anything is wrong with your mama. Your mama, she just out there. You don't hear a scream from your mother.
Don't hear her heartbeat quicken or something.
There's no device that you've given her to anytime if anybody finds out, Mom, they're gonna come after you. So
man, even Jimmy had a fucking watch.
That's what I'm saying. Even Jimmy had a watch. Of course, he couldn't use it, in this movie because
He's dead.
But exactly, because he had to die. So
we had to assassinate Jimmy Olsen.
And then let's look at the timing at which they came to kill. I'm going to get into this Batman pro wrestling sequence from the 50s in a minute, or at least from the 80s, because that's what the old wrestlers used to do. They used to have a montage scene when they were training. I got a pump iron, like I said.
When it comes smashing down and it hurts inside. Yes, the only thing that was missing was entrance music for these two.
I'm like, dude, I don't care how much you pump up. You're not gonna get Kryptonian strong, bro.
God.
It's not gonna happen.
People, they show a scene. They have to show a sort of suit up and preparation scene for Bruce Wayne, and all they do is show him working out. They show him working out and pumping iron and lifting a bunch of shit. They don't ever show him working on the suit.
He's doing MMA training. Now this is how stupid this is. I've seen John Jones and George St. Pierre do the exact same thing. Now, this is how dumb this is. He's supposed to be a League of Shadows ninja. That's what we want to see. We want to see the training of Batman. That's the same exact training that I saw an MMA fighter do. So you're telling me that that's what level he's on? That he's not throwing batarangs in the dark, at targets all over the Batcave? No. He's smashing a tire to improve his strength and doing all of these different things.
Because that's going to make such a huge difference against a guy who can smash through steel.
I guess that's kind of what he normally does anyway, that's just a part of his normal training.
Guys, they had like a 20-minute freaking montage of Tony Stark building the Iron Man armor and working on that.
Stuff.
They didn't show a single moment of him working on this giant mech suit that is supposedly supposed to put him on the same level as Superman.
And not only that, but speaking of the League of Shadows, why didn't he just take a private jet out to where he was trained originally and kind of go through some kind, like we said, go through some kind of almost Kumte-like situation where he had to go learn something from become some deadly style or something. Even though that's not going to work against a Kryptonian anyway, just enhance his fighting style, and they kind of try to prepare him that you're not going to be this is a death run or whatever like this.
Because they needed to show him lifting weights.
Exactly, they need to show him pumping iron. So that's it. But back to my original point. like the pacing, even when it came down to like killing his mother, the guy with the blowtorch is in the room.
Oh man.
And so Batman has time to get across.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Okay,
I want to get to
sorry.
that.
But anyway, I'm not gonna go there. I'm gonna let Corey set that up. But the bottom line is, all of this stuff is ridiculous. Like we said, Superman has no bead on his mother. He doesn't know what's going on with. You're doing all this high risk crap. You don't know what's going on. So Lex Luthor did not outsmart you, because any moron would know. Hey, once I start being a hero and it gets out there, man, everybody I love is gonna come down. Like, you know, if we're gonna play, and that's my problem with all these ridiculous fanboys. If we're gonna play in this world where we're gonna get dark, where we're gonna say the world is real, it's real. Guess what? I'm giving you a real situation. If I play hero, that's why the mobsters and stuff tell you they're gonna kill your family, they're gonna kill everybody around you. Once you step your foot into a certain world, you jeopardize everybody. And that's just one of those things. One thing about Batman, he has nobody left to jeopardize. So that's why, you know, what you're gonna do? Kidnap Alfred, who's maybe a secret agent we don't even know. I mean, so that's it. You know.
And getting right down to the crux of it all, the thing that we've been building to for over a year and a half, the final fight between Batman and Superman. Man, this is just one. The fight is not as long as you think it is. No. As many times as they featured it in this movie, it's a 2.5 hour movie from maybe a 3 to 5 minute scene. And it's not even all that great, guys. It's really not. It not only, there are some parts of it that showcase Batman's preparation, how good he is at preparation, and there were some points where it just kind of like, are you serious? Where he uses, your favorite part, Brandon, where he uses a smoke grenade to blind Superman, apparently.
Someone tried to tell me that Superman can't see through smoke. I fought back anger.
Really?
I told them that's not true.
If you watch the movie that we reviewed, yeah,
Here's the fucking problem.
Are you serious? Did they really fucking say that?
Here's the fucking problem.
Superman can't see through
smoke.
Yes.
So you're saying that Superman can't?
So if he's around a bunch of weed heads, he's just
blind, apparently.
Okay.
They tried to tell you
I may
Superman
not be able
can't
to see
through
clearly through smoke.
I'm very glad I wasn't with you in that conversation, Brandon. Punches would have been thrown.
I've dealt with that for the past couple of weeks.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yes, it was a poorly done action scene. It was kind of anticlimactic because I don't know. From I expected to watch the animated or the comic book version, the Frank Miller thing that may have just ruined DC. I expected to see that fight because in that fight, every moment was important. Every moment was vital. Every step that he took, he knew. You know, I have to know exactly where I'm going. In fact, right before he gets help from Oliver, right before Oliver fires the kryptonite arrow,
right,
he says, "Get ready," because he knows every step. Like he has a timer.
Yeah.
Because he knows, hey, I'm dead. If I don't, he's gonna eventually have to kill me because he's a dog of the government. Yeah, in this, he's just an enraged idiot.
I'm just gonna shoot kryptonite smoke bombs at him, weaken him temporarily,
and then at the very bottom of this building is a kryptonite spear that
Batman has crafted a kryptonite spear. Now, before we move on to talk more about that, I just want to say for another giant plot hole here is that Superman, that whole thing we talked about with his mom being kidnapped. Superman goes with it. Apparently, this motherfucker forgets that he can fly at supersonic speeds and see through anything besides lead and can hear a heartbeat from across the planet and says, mommy! And then just flies to go fight the Superman or try to get his help or whatever. And despite the fact that he's also strong enough to hold Batman down, in the opening scene, a simple shove sends Batman flying like 30 feet away. Would it have been so hard for him to hold him down and say, hey, an innocent woman's life is in danger, man?
Or just fly with them into the sky.
Just fly with him into the sky and say, hey, look, my mom has been kidnapped. She's human. I need your help.
If you fly with him into the sky, he's not going to use his kryptonite weapon because then he'll die with you.
So there's a lot of things that could have happened, but instead, for some odd reason, his rage gets the better of him and he decides that he just has to fight Superman, and it's like all of this information in that hole. If I wanted it, you'd be dead already. Who was that for? Who was that for? Was that supposed to get him to give up? Because oh man, the whole thing was like we're watching two roid heads go at it, and one of them just happens to have a bigger.
They wanted to pull something from the comic book version where I think there's a part in the comic book where he kind of says, "Do you want me to kill you, Bruce?" Remember that? I think they were kind of trying to use that line, but it's just not.
It fell very flat
Yeah,
because there was nothing behind it. There was nothing behind it at all. All of this setup with the Frank Miller version was a massive amount of comic book lore that set up the fight that was supposed to happen between those two, and that fight had meaning. Every step of it had meaning. This was just, all right, let's throw them in together.
And that's my thing, because there was no ideological push against each other. They didn't try to fill each other out ever. It was just like I said, Batman does no detective work, goes crazy, gets triggered, decides he's got to kill him today. Today is the day, and then you get so primitive that you're using a spear, that you're going to kill him with a spear. You got kryptonite gas grenades.
Couldn't you make kryptonite bullets if you were going to do that?
I'm like, we can't craft kryptonite bullets. We just got a kryptonite gas grenade. You already got a Gatling gun that you're spraying down everybody else in the world, but you're just not going to come in there with kryptonite bullets. Or even better yet, like somebody said, you set up almost like a trap, where there's a room that's kryptonite is kind of like everywhere, and it just shines down on them, and that weakens them, and you can actually beat them in that room. But no, instead, we're sitting up here saying, oh yeah, we're going to weaken him for a couple seconds, and this. Now let's get to one other part that I'm going to just say this about. You remember what we just said about Superman pushing people through walls?
Yeah.
Well, when Superman was beating his butt and pushing him through walls and stuff like that, you're a man in a suit. We're going to go back to what I said
He's
initially.
A man in a suit.
We're going to go back to what I said at the beginning of this. He's walking around and you're already probably cancerous.
He's getting tossed around. He's getting tossed around like a rag doll before he hits you with that kryptonite.
You're already old. Because this is an older Batman. This is an older Batman. Then you're walking around in the toxic crap that happened before. So you should be have cancerous pollens on your lungs by now. Then you get a suit created.
Oh, it's super strong, all right. It's going to help him, right? It's going to completely go toe to toe with Superman.
And I'm not going to go into a comic rant here, but I'm just going to say this is the same premise that I got angry with recently, where Superman forged a suit for Batman in one of the stories with Damon. He forged a suit in the sun so that he could go to Apocalypse. So because it was a suit that Batman had created, so he could go to Apocalypse and get his son's body back. It's a whole nother storyline. So I'm sitting up here wait a minute. This suit is not going to really... He's not going to be able to fight these gods. They're gods. Exactly. You're a man in a suit. So
it would actually make more sense if he was... if he was like Iron Man and the suit was more powered by
something,
some sort of
like
energy.
Kryptonite. If it was if the suit itself was
you mean if you had a suit like
the real Lex Luthor supposed to have,
real Lex Luthor?
Yeah, if you had a suit that was just oozing kryptonite, the lining and stuff like that was green. The center it was almost like metallo.
Hey guys, I'm sorry. My heart just kind of gave out a little bit because you just helped me come up with a much better scenario of those two duke it out. They figure out they're on the same side. Then suddenly you see Lex Luthor come out and he has his own suit.
Yeah,
and they have to fight him, and he can't
That's
Superman's is weakened because it's now powered by kryptonite, just like it normally would.
That's what I thought. Yep. That's actually what I thought was going to happen.
Yep.
I thought, I thought that's what he was going to do. That he was building his suit. He had the kryptonite, and he was building his suit, and I was going to have to put up the reason why I kind of didn't want to see that, and I'm glad I didn't see that, even though it's a good idea. This Lex Luthor would have been driven mad.
Oh God!
By all of the crap that he would have been saying and all of the different things, so I couldn't deal with it. I know what you're saying, that maybe his hair falls out because he's been that closely, he's been exposed to the kryptonite for so long. It gave him cancer in the comics.
Yeah, it did.
No,
not for that one.
I couldn't deal with that.
But as far as that whole scene, that whole setup goes, they fight. Batman gets him down into the bottom of this building where they're fighting against. And he by this time he has crafted a kryptonite spear. It's a kryptonite spear. There's really no way, nothing else to explain about that. And he gets Superman down. He's weakened Superman enough. He's got his foot on his throat, and he's about to stab him through the heart or through the head or whatever. And Superman is like, "No, you have to save Martha. You have to save Martha." I will give the movie this one point. That is a coincidence that I never thought of. I never thought about that. That both Batman and Superman's moms had the same name, and that was an interesting point. That's about the only interesting point in that entire fucking thing. Because I remember hearing somebody said that they would have reasoned that if he's at that point, he would have said, "Oh, that's a strange coincidence," and then stabbed him through the heart. That would have pretty much been it. But instead, he starts screaming, "How do you know that name? Why do you say that name?" And that's the thing that stops him from killing Superman. And Lois, who is somehow magically managed to find them, I guess, through all the barrage of explosions and buildings blowing up. And jumps in and says, "It's the name of his mom. It's the name of his mom." And oh my God, he probably does. Batman probably does the dumbest thing I've ever seen, and he just simply throws the spear away. A weapon that he murdered dozens of people over and crafted specifically to kill this godlike being, and he thinks it's a good idea that when the fight's over, well, I don't need this anymore, and he just tosses it to the other side of the room. He doesn't put it in the Batjet. He doesn't put it away. He doesn't put it in something that's lead line and takes it out of sight. He just tosses it in the middle of an abandoned building. And he leaves it there. He leaves it there.
But I can see this Batman doing all of those things. The Batman that they've shown me in this film, who doesn't think, doesn't do detective work, doesn't have, a shred of logic, I could see him doing that. I could see him just tossing something away. I could see him, this entire scenario it makes no sense. So by this time, I've accepted it. I've accepted everything that he is. I've accepted that he just, he was in a blind rage. So you were saying, you were talking about the fact that maybe he's just like, oh man, he would just say, oh, I'll stab you in the heart. Well, I think he was so trapped in emotion. The emotion of that that made sense. With that idiot character, the emotion... the emotion did kind of trap him in a moment.
It makes sense. It makes sense in the fact that they've set up this insanely idiotic version of Batman.
Yeah,
This path that you've taken him on, that does make sense with what you've done. With
the other Batman would finish the task like that. He would say, "Okay, I have to do this. I have to destroy this being on Apocalypse." Boom. But no, yeah.
This is the type of thing I didn't like that myself. I didn't like the fact that the way they drew that up. That this is the thing that stops them from fighting. I don't even like the way they ended up fighting. I would have preferred, again, like stealth. Like I said, I'll go to a comic. Hyperion and Nighthawk. These are anagrams of Batman and Superman, or analogs of Batman and Superman. Sorry, not anagrams, analogs in the Marvel universe. Right? They've had a similar story, but this Batman analog knows that he only has one chance against a more violent, more murderous,
a godlike being.
And so he goes through a whole series of precautions for this one fight.
From what you said, he prepared for like months.
Oh yes, he prepared for like months. He had a contrived plan that
and
was so contrived.
Complicated.
Exactly.
Like in every step of the way had a point.
Exactly. And he knew he only had one shot, even with that going on.
So you mean he didn't just throw a signal up in the sky, build a suit, pump some iron, and just
sit there and wait for him?
And sit and wait for him?
Like, it was, because this almost ended up like kids on the playground. Or two angry guys saying, man, I bet I never see you around here again. If I ever see you around
shine that light in the sky, I'm going to come by and whoop your ass.
Exactly.
Man, why you say my mama name?
Exactly. Why you say that, man? Come on down, tell me, man. I'm still going to beat you down. And then,
don't talk about my mama, man.
Yeah. And that's basically how that felt. And he felt like a character that was, like we keep saying, roid rage, so roided up that even if he had killed Superman, he would probably went somewhere, cried, and killed himself.
Probably.
I mean, that's the way it felt.
That's how bad these characters have gone,
That's how it
guys.
felt. It felt like these guys were middle-aged men who were hopped up on roids, and I'm not going to say the name from wrestling, but my mind keeps going to it.
Which one? But
I don't want to do it because it's tragedy what happened with him. But at the same time, that's what this felt like.
For all two people who have not seen season 2 of Daredevil, for all two of you out there is a scene in probably, I believe it's episode 3, called New York's Finest.
Yes.
And it is one of the, I can only say it's one of the greatest superhero scenes I've ever witnessed, and there's not a single punch being, well, there is one at the end, but it's not a fight of fists. It's not a fight of powers. It's between Frank Castle, the Punisher, and Matt Murdock, Daredevil. And it's not a fight of fists. It's a fight of ideologies. Because they are both arguing back and forth trying to say one person's way is better or worse than the other. And that counts as probably one of the greatest superhero scenes I've ever witnessed from a comic book because they were spot on with the characters. I was not watching, the actors play this part. I wasn't watching John Bernthal and I forget his name who plays Daredevil. I wasn't watching those guys. I was literally watching Frank Castle and Matt Murdock have a fucking argument about something they felt important about. And the greatest tragedy to me about this movie is that was what I was most looking forward to when I heard about this, and it never happened. There was never a point where Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent or Superman and Batman just talked. just talked and said your way is horrible because all you do is frighten people and you make people feel fear all the time. And there was never a point where he said, well, all you do is think that everything shines in the light and that everything can be done that way. You're a visitor here. You're not from this world. You don't know what monsters really look like.
Exactly.
They clearly value the fight more than they did any of those things.
Clearly.
So they didn't really care about the ideology. They only cared about getting to the big, smash 'em moment of the century. The fight of the century is what this was supposed to be, and that's what they focused on. So when you read the comic book, even if you don't read the comic book and you're just a thinker, you cherish that more. But the fight became and it wasn't even that great of a fight.
It really wasn't.
So
I mean, let's
the
look at it from a
disappointing
different
part.
standpoint. With The Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. Some of the best scenes that they had was when the Joker was just spouting off what he thought about the world. Some of the best things they had was when people were talking about ideologies and their motivations. Everyone hailed that. Everyone loved that. The Christopher Nolan Batman films were a thinking man's movie.
Yes.
They were a thinking man's movie. This is not a thinking man's movie. This is if you like big explosions, if you just happen to like colorful, I can't even say colorful costumes. Everything is fucking dull in this movie. Everything is dull in this movie. It's all dark and dreary shit. But they just happen to be in costumes when they're doing these things and blowing up buildings and fighting monsters. And that's all it is. If all you're looking for is just some stupid flick that happens to have two iconic superheroes in it, that's all you're going to get.
And Justice League Dark, that's what you should call it. Because like everybody, Wonder Woman's costume gets.
She looks more like Xena.
I know. Yep.
She looks more like Xena.
Aquaman is dark. They got him looking dark.
And did that? I have to pause just for a second because there is a point, folks, where they do cameo some of the other Justice League members here, and I swear to you, Aquaman's appearance was so awkward. It just seems so awkward. He looked Jason Momoa looked uncomfortable in the water. Like he looked really uncomfortable. Like while they were trying to shoot that scene.
it's because he was underwater holding his breath.
It was.
That's why.
It looked like a bad TMZ scene where he's like holding a spear up and the camera's there and it's like get the camera out of my face and he like.
I think if
swims
they had just shown him for a split second and then he smashed the camera while doing
it would have
that,
been better.
But they
lingered.
it.
They lingered.
He prods the camera like 4 or 5 times and then he shoots away.
And that just really looked awful. It looked just really, really awful.
Like he's never seen a camera before.
Yep.
And if he'd shown him for a split second, that would have been good. But yeah, this movie was just, it was dark in all the wrong ways. It was dark in all the wrong ways, and we haven't even gotten to the pivotal, other moments here of them shoehorning in another character that they didn't need to do, Doomsday, where this was probably the saddest portion of the film, and it was supposed to be the big action sequence where the big three finally worked together and put all their differences aside to fight this giant monster. Let's just go back a minute with how that came about. Lex Luthor, who inexplicably managed to get access to an alien-controlled spaceship, so much to the point where, one, he can get the corpse of one of said aliens. He gets the corpse of Zod. Manages to slice off Zod by himself.
Nobody's there with him.
No one's there with him. By himself. Manages to use some of that kryptonite material to slice off Zod's fingertips and paste them on his own to get access to the ship. And this is another plot hole of mine that I really disliked, is that little pod thing, that little AI that came up, didn't try to kill him. Because if I'm not mistaken, didn't Lois almost die when she came upon Superman's ship?
Yes.
Yeah.
That thing nearly fucking killed her. And it's
and
like, oh, well, you have Zod's fingertips.
It can't recognize human DNA, can't separate human DNA from Kryptonian DNA.
All because he's got false fingertips on.
Yeah, exactly. And wouldn't you have to remove Zod's hand at least, his entire hand? All you need is fingerprints. Can it tell? I mean, your entire print. That's what it required, kind of. Like you.
And by the way, we're basing this assumption off of Earth technology.
Just Earth technology. So Kryptonian technology is supposed to be like, I don't know,
thousands of
years ahead. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and he just, not only that, but the ship.
No retinal scan.
No retinal scan. No nothing. No full body scan. It's just, oh, you got Zod's fingerprints. You're in. And that's it. It recognizes him as the ship's captain. And the AI, the way that this apparently works is that he takes Zod's body, he puts it in some kind of jello goop or some shit like that.
Yep.
He slices his hand and puts some of it on some of his blood on Zod's body, and apparently orders the machine to transform this corpse into a monster. And I can only ask. I realize this Lex Luthor is supposed to be some form of insane, but what the fuck was his end game supposed to be? Because he couldn't control that thing. It was pretty obvious he couldn't control that thing, whatever the hell it was. and he just decided to make a creature to destroy the planet. So, oh man, there's plot holes galore in just that part. So he decides to build this, and when Batman and Superman work together to save Martha, which by the way was probably the best scene in the entire movie, was just Batman actually using his fists and feet to beat the crap out of some bad guys. That was actually one of the best scenes in the whole freaking movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. The fight scene with Batman and those villains.
That was like a live action version of what we've seen in the Batman video games. Like
Exactly.
That was a legitimate like Batman ass kick scene.
Yes.
So that was great. But after they've done that and he realized that he can't get those two to kill each other, he decides to release Doomsday, this monster, which we think is just going to be the creature of the week. They're all going to work together, they're going to beat him, and that's going to be the end of it. Oh, but oh my god, they actually... There are some people who really were legitimately surprised. Spoiler alert, this thing does kill Superman. It actually manages to kill Superman throughout after this entirely CGI-driven fight scene that destroys more buildings, that causes more destruction, that's supposed to be in an uninhabited island that just is in the middle of freaking Metropolis. I love how they threw that line in.
Yes.
I love how when all of this destruction is going on, they just decide to throw in the line, oh, thankfully they're fighting on an uninhabited island portion. Bullshit.
Everywhere they just managed to fight in these uninhabited areas.
And destroy all of these buildings that absolutely have no people inside.
Yeah, basically the comic book L.A. or New York.
Now, what occurred with Lex Luthor is he's supposed to been this character was already going crazy per se, but he's supposed to have been patched into that ship, and you saw how he was getting all this knowledge about what's going on, and that's where he's supposed to like the visions of Darkseid and all this other stuff supposed to be coming from. Well, part of that is he learns. In this short period of time, he learns how to make the abomination. Like somehow Kryptonians had learned how to make almost a golem-like creature that was a weapon of war, I guess, by splashing Kryptonian DNA with something else. So that's what this idea of Doomsday is supposed to be. And somehow, I guess you set this thing on whatever your enemy is, and it's supposed to go and destroy your enemy. But the problem is, what about the creature? Like you said, so the creature gets left behind. Who's going to control it? Because at some point, you can't control a monster that's just set to...
It tries to kill him when it first gets out of the embryo. Like
Exactly.
The only reason he lived was because Superman saved him.
Yeah. So I'm just like, at the end of the day, I can't. I just like, and then to go back to, we kind of jumped over it, but a point I was saying earlier was like when Batman went to save Martha.
Because after the fight, after they finally settle their differences, he says, Martha's not going to die tonight. And Batman goes off in his jet to find Martha.
Yes.
Even though Superman could probably have done it a lot fucking faster.
Exactly. So you go take care of this other thing, and I'm going to get Martha. And so he gets in. They tell him where Florida going. But the guy who's going to kill Martha is right there in the room with him.
Yeah.
So it's
with a flamethrower.
With a flamethrower. So... it's one of those classic, ridiculous superhero, it takes forever to do something situations, like where the guy's either pontificating about what he's going to do and how great he is, or they just taking forever to...
I'm going to kill her! I swear, I'll kill her! I'll burn her alive! Yeah. He's there saying that for like 5 seconds. Like
I'm actually surprised that he didn't monologue as well.
Yes.
The guy was monologuing like, yeah, Martha, this is what you deserve. Yada, yada, yada. I'm wasting time for Batman to get here.
and then he hears his
henchmen
getting their ass whooped,
beaten.
And they turn around, and instead of just go ahead and lighten her up and going to join everybody, no, he's just sitting in there like, oh crap, I'm probably not going to get out of this alive anyway. Why not just kill her and get it over with? No, I'm going to sit here and wait and see it.
I'm going to wait for a progress report. Hello?
What?
Anyone out there?
Is anybody coming to save her? I'm waiting. And so, and I'm like, you couldn't even take the pacing of this movie and say this guy's downstairs or some other area and he's going up and he may not even realize all this other shit is going on upstairs, and maybe when he's getting off on that floor, Batman grabs him.
Oh, and I got
you know what I'm saying?
Grabs him out of the shadows.
Exactly.
Do something that Batman might do.
Like stealth?
Like something like Batman would do.
Exactly, like stealth.
And I love the crux of that whole situation, too, because if there was ever any question, if all of the fanboys wanted to say, oh, all those people that he shot at in the chase scene, they're just really, really hurt. I dare you to say that about the guy who he lit up with that flamethrower.
Yes.
Because the way that he saves Martha is apparently he throws a batarang in the guy's fuel tank who's wearing the flamethrower, and the guy bursts into flame.
Yes.
He's dead, folks. He's fucking dead.
Look, if Race Bannon and Johnny Quest have been killing bad guys for years, I'm okay to a certain point with certain things happening. What I don't like is the simple fact that this Batman who was willing to kill at the drop of a dime is somehow freaking out because Superman
has all these
powers.
Is already like,
and I'm like, this is already a Batman.
This is my world. I can kill people. You can't.
And then on top of that, this is a guy who's faced. We got to say, maybe in this universe, did he ever face Killer Croc? Did he ever face?
Apparently he has.
All of these murder sacks, at least.
They're gonna set this up in Suicide Squad because Ben Affleck is in Suicide Squad as well.
Oh boy,
he's gonna be Batman in Suicide Squad from what I've heard. So apparently he has faced down these characters. He has faced down these numerous killers and whatnot, and that's gonna make it all the more confusing and make him even more of a hypocrite because it's like, fuck, wait, you're coming after Superman, but you've been killing it. How big is your body count right now, man?
And that he doesn't kill Killer Croc, he doesn't kill Joker, he doesn't kill Enchantress, he doesn't kill Harlequin,
he doesn't kill horrible murderers.
These horrible people. Maybe they can't destroy the planet, but they can destroy a city, and he doesn't kill them. But
Joker's
he wants to
still
kill.
Alive,
but he wants to kill. He wants to kill Superman.
He wants to kill the guy who the last. By the way, another annoying thing that I really disliked about this film is how they didn't really go into depth of him rescuing people. All they ever did was just show fucking montages. They just showed a montage of his rescue attempts, and it's like, okay, we got to get back to this plot. We got to get back to this really convoluted ass plot.
Oh, yep.
Even though it's about this guy, half of it is about the guy saving people, and they just show a half-ass montage of it.
You're really gonna have to work hard to impress me with that type of scene. It's gonna have to be like Spider-Man. I was impressed with the scene in Spider-Man where he kind of had to, I think, save someone from a burning building, and it looked really cool. But that's the part of the game that I would prefer to skip over. I don't care to save people in games, so when I'm watching it, I'm kind of like, gosh, you really have to include something special. Like maybe Lex Luthor, it was just a trap, but it was just a fake rescue, or something like that. But usually when he's just saving stupid people, I'm kind of like, you know.
And again, they never deal with the whole God aspect because they showed so much. Again, that was in the montage where they showed people supposedly like worshiping him as a god or like trying to just touch his cape like he's some sort of deity or something like that. Never gets addressed. He never addresses that. They never go into him saying, "I'm not an ethereal being, guys. I just have a lot of powers."
It never, like I said, between that, him not talking to the UN and not addressing any of this stuff. Him not having a contingency plan for his mother if you're going to go out and do this hijinks crap. I'm not going to get into the ridiculousness of Perry White still playing like, where does that boy go? I don't even know. Somebody get me a ham sandwich. Good Lord.
I've been there. Who been there? Who?
You know, exactly. It's like, okay, man.
You're the editor in chief of a bunch of news reporters. You're telling me your top reporter could figure out who the fuck he is, but you can't.
Yeah, exactly. It's the glasses, man.
Really?
So,
all right, man.
And again, and this is one of those situations where I say, when you want to say that, oh, the DC fanboys go crazy and say Marvel is so kiddie, we're so real. I'm like, look, man. I'm a comic book fan, like we said before, all the way around. I like both Marvel and DC. This is ridiculous because you're being a hypocrite. DC is not being more real here. They're being ridiculous. They're trying to be dark. Because how is it that you can say, I can kill and maim and do all this other crazy stuff, but I can't figure out who Superman is on a larger scale?
I can't do any detective work.
I can't do any detective work.
I can't figure out, where he's been going or what he's up to. I can't have all of this information the government already has.
We can kill Jimmy Olsen, but we can't just go ahead and do away with the whole damn idea of the daggum Daily Planet and newspaper stuff. Exactly. We could do away with that now. Because I think at this point we're moving along. Lois knows who he is. His mom, everybody knows who he is.
Apparently they are doing away with it with a bullet to the head in Jimmy's case.
Exactly. But I'm like, at some point, the newspaper, he should have been gone away from that newspaper a long time ago, meeting with the UN. There's no more Clark. You're both together. Your mother's into hiding or under government watch, whatever,
Something like that.
Yeah. You have a good point, man. How many people do you think that he actually could save if he was just Superman full time?
Yeah.
Because why is he really protecting his identity? If you really think about it, it's like, man, you really should be Superman 24/7 instead of writing about. I mean, Perry tried to get him to write a sports story.
Yes.
He's writing a sports story. There's like some sort of military conflict in Kosovo. People need your help. You're writing a sports story, Superman.
Hey, man. Hey, some people are getting new basketball coaches around here. I want to know about it, Clark. But no, but it's one of those type of things. that's what bugs me. So if you're gonna say that things have moved along, and we don't want to go long, I'm gonna leave it at this. If you want to say things have moved along, then move them along. Don't just move parts of them along and say, "Oh, like you said, we're trying to be dark," which is one of the vestiges of bad writers. They just paint everything in this grim type world, and we're supposed to be okay with it.
We'll leave off on this last part of just talking about the film in general. When I say they try to shoehorn a bunch of stuff in, it's not just the characters, it's not just a bunch of different stuff that's going on. They actually try to shoehorn in very legendary comic book plots. And I guarantee you, no less than three comic book plots that changed the face of comic books for a long time. One of them was The Dark Knight Returns. Another one was Batman v Superman in the first place, world's finest. And the third, of course, was the death of Superman. And they thought it was a good idea to throw all of these things together and somehow make this work. And it all just falls apart so bad. Because, I mean, guys, I didn't feel shit. I didn't feel anything when Superman bit it, man. When Superman died fighting Doomsday, there wasn't any, oh my God, Superman's dead thing going on. And in fact, all of those people coming together to mourn him and go to his funeral didn't make any fucking sense. Because in the friggin' scene where he arrives at the courthouse, you're seeing a bunch of people holding up signs saying "Alien, go home." You know, Earth is for Earthlings. They're burning effigies of Superman.
When the monster, when the monster and Superman are fighting in space, they say, "Fuck it, we're just gonna shoot this." Excuse my language. They say, "Forget it," and they say, "Let's go ahead and just send this nuclear weapon."
Yeah,
up
the government. The government launches a nuke.
Never mind the fact that the radiation is gonna bathe the planet. We hope that it burns up in the atmosphere.
We
hope. I don't know what that's all about. So I'm like,
Yeah. I agree with that, man. I think that you didn't care because you knew it wasn't permanent. You knew that Superman would be back.
They made the death of one of the most iconic comic book characters in history meaningless.
So let's think about this. In the Man of Steel, they killed Zod. They went through. They destroyed the city in this
and killing
Dragon
Zod was
Ball
actually
Z fight.
Killing Zod was actually more of a surprise than this.
Yes.
Probably. Yeah, I mean, I agree, but. They've already covered the death of Superman. So that's Zod gone. That's Doomsday ruined.
That's the Justice League apparently doing their thing and fighting one of the biggest monsters that has ever been in the comic book universe.
All they really have left are, they got Brainiac, they got Darkseid. They're probably not going to go Brainiac, so they're just going to go Darkseid. But what more could you really do now?
Nothing. At this point, they've blown their load as far as giant characters go. They've blown their load as far as giant characters, as far as giant monsters and earth-shattering villains go. They've pretty much just... I can almost guarantee the next movie is going to be the Justice League coming together to fight Darkseid. I can almost guarantee that's going to be it.
And that's going to be sad because Darkseid is supposed to be saved. He's supposed to be threatened to exist and be out there. To pull him out of the hat so quickly is kind of horrible. I hated the fact that Zod, there was no Phantom Zone, that they don't play the Fortress of Solitude up enough.
They never give any of these characters a chance to come back.
That's what I'm saying, and there's no anything. Like, I would have liked to have actually seen Zod not die, but go to a Phantom Zone, and again, if we're gonna do away with the Daily Planet, well, not necessarily do away with it, but like Clark is gonna be away from it, and we're just gonna say we're in a new world now. He doesn't have to be this. He's gonna be a scientist. He's gonna go off and be working up there. He's going to be with the United Nations now. He's going to do all this other stuff. And then he's going to go off into space and do all this other crap because he knows other things are coming. He finds this out at the Fortress of Solitude because get this, the same crap that Lex Luthor finds out from connecting to this ship, he finds out connected to his ship.
Which again, another plot hole because he finds all this stuff out from Zod's ship, which is operating at like 30% capacity.
30%.
It said that it was only operating at 30% capacity.
Yep.
Clark has a working 100% ship.
Yep.
He has a working vessel that just happens to be old.
Yep.
But somehow he doesn't get any of this info from there.
Like his dad didn't give him anything about what's going on,
and
what's out there.
All Zod did in Man of Steel was just delete the what was it, the sentient program, the AI that was Jor-El. That's all he actually did. He didn't actually erase all of the other information that was on the vessel. So Clark could have found all of this stuff out himself.
Yep.
But instead, they decided to just waste all of this, and I know that's what they're going to do.
Russell Crowe asked for way too much money in the second movie, which is exactly why they deleted his consciousness from the computer because Russell Crowe wanted a shitload of money, and they said, no, No, we're not going to do that.
No. So we're not going to do a Marlon Brando with you. This is not going to happen. Sorry, we can't have that happen.
So the end with him on that. But yeah, I don't know. It's like we keep saying, it's just all over the place.
DC and Warner Brothers, they have no idea. They seem to have no damn idea of how to play a long distance game.
No.
They keep saying they don't want to be like Marvel. Yes, they do. They wish they were Marvel because Marvel has been doing this for years, and Marvel is so damn good at it at this point. Guys, how much money in all do you think they have possibly spent on advertising Civil War? Seriously. Like, it can't have been more than maybe, like, what, 20, 30 million? Because all they've had to do is release 1 and 2 minute trailers.
I haven't really seen as many. I'm pretty sure when the film, it's coming out on May 6th. I'd probably say half. I'd probably say half as much.
And they didn't need to do it because at this point, you can release a film still with what movies they're putting out, and they're loving it. Guys, folks, they released just a poster, a teaser poster of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and the internet lit up.
Yep.
That was passed around everywhere from a teaser poster. Marvel has got this. Marvel has got this so much. People are getting excited now for a Doctor Strange movie. Guys, after Guardians of the Galaxy, after Ant-Man, they can really do no wrong at this point.
Because they understand it's a trope, and they know that Doctor Strange is part of like we said, the long game, the Infinity Gauntlet. He's got,
and he's gonna connect the magical world, and they're gonna have an Infinity Stone involved in that movie. I know they will.
So there you go. So Marvel is playing the long game, as you should do with Darkseid. DC is not playing the long game. They're playing the instant gratification. We got to get all of it up front. Let's put in as much of this stuff as we possibly can put in.
I mean, seriously, how many Marvel movies went by before Thanos was ever even mentioned? How many Marvel?
Exactly.
We actually didn't even see Thanos until the Avengers first movie.
Yep.
The Avengers first movie showed you Thanos, and that was it. And that was as much of a glimpse as you got.
Exactly. No more discussing him. Now we're dealing with all kinds of other stuff that's involved. And get this, Baron Zemo. They're pulling out another villain, blast from the past.
Are you
He's going to be
serious?
a villain in, the new movie.
Baron Zemo is going to be in Civil War?
Yes.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yep, it's going to be fun.
So at this point, they can pull out C-lister villains and still, man, I knew they had something going on when they pull out Batroc the Leaper.
And they
In
did
the
it
second
well.
movie, and they did it well. They got George St. Pierre to play him, and he was badass.
Yes.
He was actually a really good character to see.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he is so, oh my God, he is so low on the road.
He's so
as
hopeful.
far as villains go, man. He is a comic book character, but he
Yes.
is like a low tier villain.
Yes.
And they did it well, and it's just like, man, guys, for our audience members listening in on this is not us being triumphant saying, oh, we were right, the movie was bad. We are so angry because we're disappointed. This movie could have been so much better. This could have been so much more than it was. And they fucked it up because they wanted to try and make quick cash, and they don't know how to play a long distance game just because they don't want to be seen as being like Marvel.
We don't want this to fail because, we spoke about this before. If one of these major films if it fails, then you may not actually get as many superhero movies because people tend to group a lot of things in together. It's obvious that the executives don't know what they're really doing. So we don't want Warner Brothers to say, you know what, we need to just go back to doing it the way that we did it before, which is just make standalone movies. Because they may just say, you know what, we're going to keep making superhero movies. But this Justice League thing, man, we're talking about 5 or 6 films. Just one of these films costs what? $400 million, everything together with the budget. So you're talking about how much do you think the Justice League movie is going to cost? $600, $700, $800 million plus, the marketing and advertising. If this didn't work, so guess what? If the Suicide Squad flops, it really jeopardizes the DC cinematic universe.
It really is going to be close to being just Marvel's game because DC is screwing up so bad to the point where it's like they're not making the money that they thought they would make off of these because they're not good at it. They're not doing it well. They're not good at it. They don't want to follow Marvel's lead because reasons. I don't even fucking know why. And if Suicide Squad bombs, because make no mistake, folks, you can listen to all of the rhetoric and bullshit that you want. Batman v Superman fell below their margins of what they wanted to make. It fell very low of their margins of what they wanted to make. And yes, did it make a lot of money? Oh, absolutely it did. There's certain things that you can't stop with a hype machine like that. It's always going to happen. But they were expecting like almost a $1 billion turnaround with this. They were expecting like damn near $1 billion to break even with how much money they spent on this movie. So, and they did not hit that mark. They did not hit that mark. People keep saying, oh, they made like 600-700 million worldwide. They wanted 9.
Yeah.
They wanted 900 million worldwide, and they're not going to get it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, and even Rotten Tomatoes, forget the Rotten Tomatoes score, they actually had like one of the biggest drop-offs any superhero film has had.
In history.
The opening weekend was big, and then the drop-off was like between 70 and 80%.
Yep.
Where people just stopped going to see it. So at this point, they're jeopardizing the whole DC universe, movie universe at least, of anybody wanting to go see it because, like you said, Brandon, they do group stuff like that together, and at that point, people might just start say, you know what, man, we just don't want to see any more DC films. Marvel's doing a lot better than you guys, so we're just going to stick with that. And they don't know the danger they're in, and they just keep thinking if we throw money at it and just make it a darker movie, you know, it'll be fine. Ever since Green Lantern, they just decided to say no more jokes, no more lightheartedness. You know, that's what screwed us up. They think that's what screwed you up.
No, that's not what screwed you up. The fact that you don't look at things like Guardians of the Galaxy came after you, and they did Green Lantern the way they did what you were supposed to do with Green Lantern. Like the Green Lantern is a cosmic thing, and you sit there, kept it all on Earth. He's telling jokes. This isn't the Hal Jordan wasn't even a jokey guy in the book. And where did you come up with this crap?
As loath as I am to admit it, you can't say that it's a lack of humor that will do a movie in because Deadpool came out, and they're now hailing that as like one of the highest rated R-rated movies for a superhero that's ever come out.
Yeah.
It's still doing well. People are still raving about Deadpool, and Deadpool was a great movie. So it's not the humor, it's not the style, it's just everything else. But guys, on that note, I think we should pause it here because we've still got more to say, and we're going to be bringing in our friend Jonathan on this. Yeah. There's still more to talk about on this movie. This has been the Batman v Superman review for Critical.